Let's talk about this.
Take risks.
What? Seriously?
No.
But this is important too. Hello everybody and welcome to the Filipino Freethinkers podcast that's also a video. I'm Red.
And I'm Kenneth.
And today we're going to talk about something very important and very sad. Would you call it sad?
Or the fact that a law that has been...
Disillusioning?
Yes. I would consider it pretty sad. You're talking about the fact that a law that has been under discussion for anywhere between 15 and 20 years and is now trying to be strangled in Supreme Court. I would say that's sad.
Okay, we are angry. We're definitely angry. And you tell us, is it just our anger that makes us see certain connections in these past few series of events? I'm talking about the recent article that the editors published on our website. The link's right there. And it points to a potential indiscretion on the part of certain public officials. And, okay, where did it start? Like, what tipped us off to this? So certain bishops have been visiting.
In the last few months, there have been a number of bishops that have been visiting Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo in her hospital detention. And while a lot of these bishops are the same ones that were her friends previously, the notable one would be Oscar Cruz, who has been a vocal opponent of GMA.
So Oscar Cruz, this is something that I admire about Oscar Cruz. Like, he says really stupid things on things that we obviously disagree about, but he's always been staunchly an anti-corruption kind of bishop, which is why he was so against GMA before. And for Oscar Cruz to visit GMA, it kind of rings the alarm
not just
bell.
visit GMA, but then later call for a commuting of her existing hospital detention sentence to a more comfortable house arrest. So you have a former opponent of GMA who is suddenly doing a 180-degree turn and saying that we should cut her some slack. And we should be kinder. So what has changed if that's the case?
And what were these bishops talking to GMA about? This piece of the puzzle really set things off. And we started on a trail because of this. Because we found out through this particular article that what they were actually talking about was the reproductive health bill.
Right. There's from GMA's own spokesperson, they admitted that in a visit which included some congressman and also Lito Atienza, who is of course from the pro-life Buhay party list, they did discuss the passage of the RH law. Yeah.
Okay, they discussed the RH law, and putting all that into context, where is the RH bill now?
Yeah, the RH law right now is currently stalled in Supreme Court. They have put in a hold order or an SQA on it, and they are currently deliberating. If you'll recall, they have had the hearings before with all of the really comical arguments made by the anti-RH people, to the point where I understand that the anti-RH arguments for those hearings on the constitutionality of the RH law were so bad, were just so outright bad and useless that law professors right now are using it in their class as an example on how not to argue in the Supreme Court setting.
Okay, so the RH law is now stalled in the Supreme Court, and you have bishops, someone like Oscar Cruz, the ex-president of the CBCP, meeting with GMA about the RH law. And what is the connection? How is GMA actually connected to the RH law hearings, to the RH law, to the justices deciding the fate of the RH law? And this is where it gets really bad.
If you look at the primary instigator for the SQA or the hold order against the RH law, which is Supreme Court Justice Brion, he has actually had a long and established history of being a supporter for GMA in many of her legal troubles towards the end of her presidency and beyond.
So the electoral sabotage case?
Yes, and then also yes.
On both instances where they had to vote, he was always on the side of GMA.
Yes, GMA. Even to the point of dissenting with his fellow justices.
And not just Brion.
Yes, not just Brion, but then also De Castro and Abad. And between the three of them, they're forming the core anti-RH bloc. So you have the main people who are holding up the RH law in Supreme Court, and these are the same people who have been put there and who have historically been under GMA.
Okay, and now you have the biggest institution against the RH law sending, okay, maybe they did, like there was no
So now you have the
leadership who sent, I'm not saying that there was some leadership who sent the bishops to visit GMA. I'm not saying that. But they certainly represent that in this institution.
Right. If you have 5 bishops, 6 actually,
Okay.
who are going to GMA, then it is not unreasonable to suppose that these bishops have cut a deal with GMA, wherein she uses her influence on the Supreme Court in order to stop the RH law in exchange for precisely what her former opponent, Oscar Cruz, is calling for, which is a commuting of her existing sentence.
Okay, so that accusation might be too strong. It could be something as simple as this. Like those bishops visit GMA and, all of the niceties happen.
Yes, I understand that there are articles where they've said that they have had some ensaymada.
We hope that
genial.
We hope that you get better. Like, it's so bad that they're treating you this way. We just hope that they would treat you better and give you house arrest instead.
Okay.
And GMA would say something like, "Oh, it's so thoughtful of you. How can I help you? What troubles you?" And, "Oh, it's just this RH law. And it's so bad what will happen to the country. And, if someone could just help us, if, we've been praying to God that they send us certain people to help us, maybe, that kind of, how that scenario would play out. And no actual exchange, no contracts would be signed, of course, no explicit, hey, can you ask for me to get,
Pag-iusap na lang.
get me house arrest? And I will get these justices of mine. Nothing. I don't think they're. Do you think they're as blatantly?
Who knows how subtle they're being? Because we weren't there.
But okay, we don't know what happened in that private room.
Yeah.
In that, what we do know is the things that we have mentioned so far.
Yes, more and more bishops are visiting GMA right now. The RH law is coming to a vote, and current projections are showing that it may well lose in the Supreme Court. The primary people against it are old GMA supporters, and so you have this current situation.
So with a controversy, or it's not a controversy now because not a lot of people have made these connections yet. But would it put into question the impartiality of this supposed or this alleged
Certainly
GMA block?
Certainly,
to the point that they should maybe inhibit. Do you think that it would be enough?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because you talk about how the Supreme Court is supposed to be above petty public influence. That's the reason why they're not elected. And then they're supposed to have all of this knowledge, and they're supposed to use this knowledge in impartial decisions. But if you have people going in to the Supreme Court, and those 3 justices entertaining so-and-so pro-life people, like we have seen, for example, Kit Tatad, Francisco Tatad, who is not a lawyer, make the first ever appearance in a Supreme Court hearing for a non-lawyer and making arguments for the anti-RH side. So if you have that kind of blatant influence that very powerful people are having on at least Brion, Abad, and De Castro, then I would say that this definitely calls into question their impartiality.
Okay, so let me, mention the elephant in the room here. So far, with all of the facts that we have, it is a conspiracy theory, which is why we're very careful to mention the things that we know and the things we're just speculating about, right? But it might be, like I mentioned earlier, just this anger that we have, that we make all of these connections. But let's put things into context here. Like, do you remember that thing with the WikiLeaks, with those cables?
Yes. Well, a few years ago, the the confidential diplomatic cables
Yeah.
came out, and then we were able to have transcripts of all of these supposedly confidential
So it's on this
communications.
link, just in case you haven't read it. It's on the website
Yeah.
of Raisa Robles. She wrote a nice piece about that.
Yes.
Where it was revealed that there were dealings between GMA and the CBCP that in exchange for GMA not pushing for the passage of the RH bill, they would stop criticizing her, stop asking her to step down.
Yeah.
And before
In short, it is established that in the past, GMA has solicited the support of these bishops for her administration in exchange for ensuring that she would not support the RH bill at the time.
Yes,
So this has
yes.
happened before.
It has happened before, and it's
And
one
now
of
we're
the
just wondering, is it unreasonable to say that it might be happening again right now?
it's one of the first few articles on this issue that I wrote. This is a link to it where I explain how the congressmen were turned into cowards by the CBCP, and the way it happened was Prospero Nograles, then Speaker, raised a very nice thing that free thinkers would support. He raised the possibility of taxing the Catholic Church.
Right.
And this was done in response to criticism coming from the Catholic Church asking for GMA to step down. Okay, so that happened, and then the threat about looking into the possibility of taxing the church happened.
Yeah.
And then suddenly both good calls, by the way, just disappeared. As if, okay, could you be more obvious than that?
Right.
So there are exchanges that happen, and again, this is all, you have to put it into context because we don't have evidence that this exchange actually happened. But then we learn
that the current...
I mean, the exchange of that deal, stop criticizing GMA and we won't investigate the possibility of taxing the church, right? So we have no evidence for that. But then later on, years on, and this was even before the WikiLeaks cables were written about, the SUV issue.
Yes.
Like we find out that certain bishops are asking for gifts to buy SUVs, for birthdays or whatever,
Yeah.
and that GMA has actually given the checks for these vehicles. And we wrote about it here.
Well,
Sorry,
the
Gary,
vehicles
for
would
all
be
of the
used to help out the poor people in their hard-to-reach.
So it just piles on. It
Yeah.
just piles on. There is a relationship.
What we're seeing here is a pattern throughout the years of the Catholic Church soliciting support from GMA and vice versa. GMA soliciting support from the Catholic Church for their own various interests, for each other's interests.
And of course, it's the same president, the same person who said there are many ways to skin a cat, but every time I'll use the Catholic way of skinning the cat, or something like that. Here's a link to. Sorry, Garrick. But
He's
okay,
editing that out.
what do we do? What can we do? Like, we bring this to court. We don't have evidence for this. Are we just mentioning this to the public because we can't do anything? It's
Right.
just that
Right now,
of.
the way that the Supreme Court is designed is none of these people are elected officials, and they are going to decide supposedly purely on the merits of the case. However, when there are a small number of them, in this case, Brion de Castro and Abad, who seem to have been unduly influenced, then what else can we do other than we go out and we try to tell people what is happening? Because the Supreme Court, while in theory is not immune to is supposed to be immune to public pressure, then we can at least call upon public opinion and letting them know that everybody is watching, and we're not going to be sitting idly by as they make their decisions on high.
Because the stakes are high. The stakes are at its highest.
Yes.
I remember when we were all riled up about the possibility of the RH bill passing or not passing.
Yes,
And
it's the same case here.
it's worse even.
It's
I
actually
mean, the
worse.
stakes are even higher.
Because if you have a Supreme Court who decides that this law is unconstitutional and on such weak legal grounds, there's no serious legal expert that has looked at the anti-RH arguments of Francisco Tatad and said, hey, those are some good points. And then you make a Supreme Court decision on something as blatantly lacking in merit as that. and then you do it for the RH law, then you set that precedent, and then suddenly we're going to have to refight the same battle. The law will have to be passed again in Congress. We're looking at
It's
another
not even the
decade
same
plus.
battle.
Yeah.
Because at least in those 14 years or so, like
You're making
we
incremental
weren't
progress.
no, we weren't against
A constitutional.
yeah.
We weren't against a ruling that
Yeah.
that elements of this very law are unconstitutional.
Yes, yes. So it's really gonna set us back, potentially even set us back more than the fight that we've so far had for the
Right.
for the
We
RH
have
law.
in the past, out of respect for the process, we have refrained from putting undue pressure on the Supreme Court because theoretically you're not supposed to give public pressure to it. We figured the least we could do in this case is we're going to be preparing a template for a letter which you can send to the Supreme Court justices. Dred, do you want to do a little link thing?
Yeah.
Yes, we will prepare that.
We haven't written it yet. Right?
But by the time that this
By all
podcast
means.
gets to you, it'll have been written.
By all means, write to the Supreme Court yourselves. Start petitions. Talk to your representatives. Make noise about this issue because the lives are at stake. At the end of the day, do you get tired of saying that 11 or 15 women die each day
It
of
certainly seems to get to the
preventable?
point. It gets to the point where even the men, and it's always men, who very callously just dismiss that. Like they have outright said, "Oh, it's just 15 women." Was that Soto who said that? It was we keep saying it, and we're not sure if it's just losing the impact or if we have to come to the rather sad conclusion that people just don't care about women dying anymore. You hear sentiments like people saying, we've been fighting this for so long, can we just give it a rest? There's a new Catholic Church out there. Like, Pope Francis is here, and he's so much nicer, so why can't we all just get along? Like, the RH law was passed, but the Supreme Court says no, so why don't we just let it rest? And
I think
all
people
get
are
along?
still on a hangover from the passage of the RH law. They think that it's a law now. Like,
Yeah,
how
they
could
figure
it
it's a
be-
law, so how could it possibly not have gone for? But even then, like that in itself is somewhat doesn't have much precedent. Like the fact that we're all hanging with this Supreme Court thing, like hanging on this decision, because that just shows you the extraordinary lengths to which the anti-RH people have been twisting and subverting every democratic institution they can find for their own ends.
So this is not the time to rest on our laurels. We're saying that there's not even any laurels to rest on
Yeah, we have
right
run-
now. We could lose all of our laurels,
Yes.
so to speak. And if ever you have been for the RH law, this is the time to pick up your battle gear and get ready to fight. Because let 1,000 legal battles bloom. Somebody famously said that.
Manalo.
But it is a fight. It is a cause that we should be speaking more about. We should be arguing more about. And most of all, we should be vigilant about all of these things that are happening all around us, because it's not just about the RH law. It's about everything else that could follow after that.
It goes to the very heart of the secularism argument.
Yeah.
Like you have, I can't see how you have all of this influence from our church officials on our existing government officials.
So if you want to ensure that state and churches remain separate, then make noise about this issue, fight for the RH law, fight for secularism, uphold RH law, and read the article in case you haven't. It's definitely worth thinking about. And thank you for listening. See you next time.